Welcome back to another episode of Off the Bench, Northern Arizona Prep Sports, presented by Rice Accounting and Jackson Hewitt Tax Services and Cottonwood Parks and Recreation. I'm your host, Philip Catalfamo. We have got a great show in store for you this week. Later in the program, we'll be joined by Bradshaw Mountain High School track and field coach Paul Mcleland. He'll speak about what brought him to Bradshaw, how he collaborates with other coaches in the area, and talks about who we could see at state competition this year. We'll then be joined by Williams High School softball coach Raul Hatch. He'll break down the talent within this year's big junior class, how he got his coaching journey started, and gives his assessment of the region. And when we return from break, we'll be joined by Mingus Union High School baseball coach Erick Quesada. He joins the show to speak about the season so far, who stepped up for them when the injury bug hit, and previews their next games against ALA-Queen Creek and Prescott. All of that and a whole lot more coming up right here on Off the Bench. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Two things we can count on every year:
a new set of tax rules and great weather here in Northern Arizona.
Jackson Hewitt Tax Service, locally owned and operated by Lewis Rice since 1997, is here for you all year long.
Your neighborhood Jackson Hewitt Tax Office will help you in all of your taxing situations.
Electronic filing is always free with your tax preparation at Jackson Hewitt Tax Service.
Get more in return. Call 1-800-234-1040 for an office near you.
Welcome back to Off the Bench, Northern Arizona Prep Sports, presented by Rice Accounting and Jackson Hewitt Tax Services and Cottonwood Parks and Recreation. I'm joined now by Mingus Union High School baseball coach Erick Quesada. Coach Quesada, welcome back onto the program.
Thanks, Phil. Always good seeing you, brother.
Well, we're always happy to have you, Coach. Right now, the Mingus Union Marauders currently sitting at 8-8 overall, 5-6 in the region, with a number 19 ranking in the state. Marauders have two games coming up here at the end of the year. They'll have a game on Friday against ALA-Queen Creek, and then on the 25th, they'll take on Prescott, which is a makeup game. We'll talk to Coach Quesada about both of those games in just a little bit. But first and foremost, Coach, I mean, you guys are rolling off of a great victory against Seton Catholic, coming off of that tough series loss to Bradshaw Mountain. Can we talk a little bit about that Seton Catholic game?
Yeah, that was a great game from start to finish. When you look in hindsight at the past couple series, stuff like that, I mean, coaching Bradshaw, they're, very, very tough teams, well coached. They swing it well, they pitch it well. But a lot of people know is that we actually lost three of our starters. We had a little injury bug go through and stuff like that. So we were kind of down, and I like to think not full strength, but, against Seton, we finally, I think, pieced it together. I think we played our most complete game of the year by far. We got Jan Alvarez back, who is a senior leader, on the field and, in the dugout as well. He threw an absolute, beauty of a game, a complete game. He just let his defense work. We hit the ball well. We had 11 hits, scored 7 runs, had a little bit of luck go our way the first inning, but then after that, we just kind of, took care of business. But when you beat a team that is a high caliber team like Seton Catholic, I mean, that is a big momentum, booster for our program. And, it kind of just lets the boys know where we're at as a team and as a program, that we can compete with those, big, Phoenix schools, that we can do that. And I just really hope that, this is going to, get the ball rolling as we head into, the state tournament.
Like I mentioned, you guys got games coming up Friday and on the 25th as well. You talk about some of those guys that stepped up during, Jan Alvarez's absence. Like you said, a couple other guys fallen ill just with some sickness. I know Ben Balo was dealing with an injury as well. Can we talk a little bit about some of those guys who stepped up? Isaiah Godina has really been solid for you in the field all season, and he's been sharing time at short and third.
Right. I mean, that's the first thing that comes to mind is Pops Godina. he had to take on that role of, shortstop. And truth be told, that's his position next year. He's the heir to the throne. And even going back to, that Seton Catholic game, there is a couple plays that he made that were absolute web gems, but he made it look routine. And all of us in the dugout are just like what's going on? It was unbelievable. But we see it at practice, and, for him to put it, in a game was, outstanding. We had, Angelo Alvarez come in, he was battling a little bit of a sickness. He's been, unbelievable defensively as well. In our Bradshaw game, he saved probably 2-3 runs by, being at second base, running all the way out to, the right you were at the game, you saw, he was making plays that were just outstanding. But, at the same time, though, there's a lot of guys who may not have gotten reps a lot, early in the season. It showed next man up. We felt comfortable putting guys in position to where they needed to be. A lot of guys, like I said, who haven't really, gotten too many opportunities, they made the most of those opportunities. And, we had a lot of senior leadership step up, the bat swung it well. But sometimes defensively it just wasn't there. But no, now that, we have, Ben back, and we have Jan back, and we have Angelo back. It's a very, very promising thing moving forward, without a doubt.
I want to talk a little bit about that senior leadership coach. Obviously you got a handful of seniors on the roster. Ryan Schamberger is one. Zach Harrison, of course, Anthony Rivera. I could keep going on, Angelo Alvarez, Jan Alvarez, of course. But I want to ask, you're going to lose Jan Alvarez next season. You obviously lose those guys. So, what have they meant to the program these past 4 years, and how have they stepped up with, the losses of some of your seniors last year?
Yeah, this is going to be, I've been telling everyone that, on senior night on Friday, it's going to be a very emotional, I think, emotional night for a lot of coaches, and especially for me. I'd like to think that they were truly my babies my first year. I inherited that, that senior class, and then we had the COVID year. So really this senior class was my freshman class that, really bought into the culture, bought into the accountability of the program. So it's really, something that's going to be very bittersweet because, they've made the program what it is today. I really truthfully told, don't have to worry about them in school. I don't have to worry about, them on the weekends. They just really hold themselves to a higher standard. But then you look at it too, is you have 7 seniors, 6 of which, are, consistently playing every single day. And, that's going to take, a toll on maybe next year in the program slightly, but like I said, is next man up. But I think what we'll mostly miss is just the camaraderie, the leadership, having those guys in the dugout that pick each other up and really tell the younger guys what to do, what not to do. And, it's a very competitive at our practices, always, bickering in a positive way that just brings, the best out of the people. And that's, and that's all attributed to them. They, like I said, they bought into everything that we're trying to do here. And it's nice to see them, kind of reap some of the benefits of that, without a doubt.
You talk about the next man up, Xavier Buckner, who we talked about in February before the season even got started. You were excited about him in the offseason when you and I got a chance to talk. He is leading the team in batting average, 406 so far this season. Right behind him is Ben Balo, a sophomore. Those are 2 guys you're going to get back next season, along with Isaiah Godina, who we mentioned. Coach, this again, you've entered another cycle of juniors turning into seniors, sophomores going into junior year, and et cetera, et cetera. So, how are you feeling about, I know the season's not over, but just kind of looking at who you're getting back next season, Hunter Cogill as well in the pitching rotation. David Rodriguez is another guy who you're going to be getting back, another good pitcher. Just more so, Coach, just kind of previewing next season. How confident are you in this group coming up?
I feel confident. I feel like we will be able to match with anyone once again. And I feel that way because, as you said, you have like a catcher such as Xavier Buckner, as you mentioned, leading the team in batting average. But, what people don't realize too is he's also a leader in that dugout as well. He makes sure to hold each other. Hold seniors accountable. Ben Balo, same thing. Pops Godina, same. It's not like we're missing anything that, like, I believe their talent wise, obviously is just, is good, not better than some of the seniors. It's not a knock on them, but it's just how they go about things. They work hard. They busted their butts, all summer, all fall, all winter. That's a talented group that if I could probably count on maybe 2 hands them combined of missing practices, which were legitimate reasons. But, I think pitching wise, Hunter, he took his lumps early. He's kind of, dialed in a little bit, but he wants better. David still has a lot of kinks to work out, but he's never really pitched at this high of level before. And that's him just trying to figure out, because he wants to be so good at everything he does. He just needs to understand how to pitch, and that he's going to be great for us in next year and the year after that. Same with Hunter. And as I said, our infield is going to be very competitive next year. The sophomore class itself, we had 22 freshmen last year. I think we retained 20 of them.
Wow.
So that's going to be 20 juniors next year that, with countless spots on varsity to, for starting position. So nothing's given, nothing's earned. I mean, everything's earned, excuse me. We got a couple juniors in the mix next year that are the same thing. But I think what's going to be, separating us is the hunger, the hunger to want to be in that starting rotation, to want to be in the starting lineup. And that's something that not a lot of programs have. And I feel like we're fortunate to have that.
Again, we were speaking with Mingus Union High School baseball coach Erick Quesada. Like I said, the Marauders currently 5-6 in the region, 8-8 overall, currently sitting at number 19 in the 4A rankings. We're talking to Coach Quesada a little before their matchup against ALA-Queen Creek. They'll play them this Friday. That's April 22nd, before they have another game against Prescott on the 25th, which is a makeup game. We'll talk to Coach here actually right now about both those games. Coach, like I mentioned, you guys had that small losing streak, and then you're able to break it in a huge fashion, beating Seton Catholic 7-5. You're coming back here this week to take on ALA-Queen Creek before you take on region opponent Prescott. I know both of those games are games you obviously want to win because you want to stay into that play-in round, sort of hovering around that 24. You guys are at 19 right now. I know you'd love to get higher than 19, but obviously wins against Queen Creek and Prescott will help. So first off, starting with ALA, Coach, what are you expecting on senior night on Friday?
I expect a good game, plain simple. You look at ALA-Queen Creek's record and it's not the best. But then, if you actually look into it, they're playing legitimate top tier teams. I mean, their region itself has, a lot of good competition. So that's not any team that we're even going to look past at all. I mean, regardless of who they are, where they're from, we're going to take it, full on head of steam. And, after our Seton Catholic win, I told the boys, I said, there's nothing, you need to be proud of the win and how you guys competed, but that's over and done with. That was yesterday, today's today. We can't get comfortable. We can't get complacent. We have no room to be either of those right now. We have to do what we need to do, and that's finish these two games. But ALA, like I said, this is going to be their third game of the week on Friday against us. And it'll be our second. We'll have 3 days of rest. They'll play today, and then they'll play, have tomorrow off and come up, travel north to face us on Friday. So that will be, a good test, like I said. Prescott, it's, that's a nice rubber match, for not a lot of people to know that we faced them twice already. We got, a whiteout of snow that second game. Due to unforeseen circumstances, we have to start it from the very beginning, which is quite unfortunate. But, it is what it is. We can, cry about it, or we can dwell on it, or we can just do something about it. And I feel like that's what our team's going to do is, we not going to care what happened. We're just going to go and play Prescott all over again. It's fine. But I'm just looking forward to these new two games to see where we're at, to see if, we can continue to move forward after that big Seton Catholic win and just do what we need to do. And I really hope to finish the week, 2-0 at the end of the day. So,
Coach, just a couple questions for you before we wrap things up here. You talk about teaching accountability to these guys. I mean, just to kind of go back to the clubhouse atmosphere, like you said, just keeping that focus down the stretch. I mean, how are you guys staying focused? Have the focus been at practice these past couple of days? Where would it be for the next 2 weeks? And, like I said, how do you kind of teach that accountability amongst your guys? You talk about a guy like Xavier Buckner, a freshman, already starting to chirp a little in the clubhouse for some of the older guys.
Yeah, when we got back on Monday, I had a talk with the boys before I got the bus, and I said, no, I don't want to hear anything about can we wear shorts? Can we have a light practice? And it was pretty cool to hear all the boys and all the seniors say, no, we're going to grind, And that was, the best thing for me is to hear that, they aren't comfortable. They want to be able to do what we need to do. We're about to start practice here in a little bit, and it's going to be an intense practice. I don't want to be too hard on their legs in the slightest, but, getting them mentally exhausted of understanding situations, what to do, because here in hopefully 2 weeks, like I said, there's nothing that's solidified that we're in the playoffs. I mean, right. I told the boys, I said, I won't be content in the sense until I see Mingus Union in a bracket. And then when I see that, then we can move forward and focus on playoffs. But as of right now, we have to finish, against ALA, and we have to finish against Prescott. But I think that focus is high. I feel like they kind of, taste it, that blood in the water. Yeah. And I'm hoping that, that just drives them to want to be better and continue to move forward. But as I said, I told the boys, there's nothing that needs to be put on social media or congratulating and stuff like that, because there's nothing set in stone just yet. When it's set in stone, then we can do what we need to do. We can celebrate for that couple hours, whatever it may be, and then it's business. And I think the boys understand that. And a lot of these boys, if not every single one of these boys, they don't know what playoffs are. They don't know that atmosphere. And after the Seton Catholic game, I told them, I said, that was a playoff game, whether you want to believe it or not. That atmosphere, every pitch mattered, everything mattered. It was full 7-inning game. That's what it's going to be like if you guys make it, right? Yeah. And it kind of got them thinking, like, wow, we can do this. And baseball is a funny game. Anything can happen. A team can get hot at the right moment and roll. And I'm hoping that could be us, here in like I said, a couple days moving forward until something gets happening. So.
Well, Coach, obviously, just real quick here, we got about a minute left. You're taking on Prescott again for what is the third time. You've seen the region all the way through now. The consensus is that it was very tough this year. I'd love to just get your opinion real quick on what your assessment of the region is.
I mean, if you look at the region, we don't get a lot of love in the Valley. That's pretty obvious. But when you have 6 of 7 teams in the top 24 in playoff contention, I think that speaks for itself. I did the math, just in my head the other day. I'm just trying to see where we're at. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, between all 7 of our region teams, I think we've combined for 61 wins. Obviously we may have 1 or 2 more than teams in a region than most, but look at who we play. We don't have too much of abundance, around our area. We have to go to the Valley, we have to go down south. We have to do all these different things. Don't sleep on the Grand Canyon region, plain and simple. Every team in our region is well coached. They're all great dudes, baseball IQ, so on and so forth. And you're going to get everyone's best punch whenever you play someone in our region. And I think that's attributed to who the schools have hired and what they bring to the Grand Canyon region for sure.
He is Mingus Union High School baseball coach Erick Quesada. Coach Quesada, best of luck against ALA and also Prescott. Appreciate talking with you.
Awesome. Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll be joined by Bradshaw Mountain track and field coach Paul Mcleland right here on Off the Bench. Don't go anywhere.
Two things we can count on every year:
a new set of tax rules and great weather here in northern Arizona.
Jackson Hewitt Tax Service, locally owned and operated by Lewis Rice since 1997, is here for you all year long.
Your neighborhood Jackson Hewitt Tax Office will help you in all of your taxing situations.
Electronic filing is always free with your tax preparation at Jackson Hewitt Tax Service.
Get more in return. Call 1-800-234-1040 for an office near you.
Welcome back to Off the Bench, Northern Arizona Prep Sports, presented by Rice Accounting and Jackson Hewitt Tax Services and Cottonwood Parks and Recreation. I'm joined now by Bradshaw Mountain High School track and field coach Paul Mcleland. Coach Mcleland, welcome onto the program.
Thank you very much, Phil.
Well, I'm very happy to have you, Coach. The season is underway for track and field for the Bears and for everybody else in Division 2, 3, and 1. here in the state of Arizona. Coach Mcleland, I've kind of done this with a lot of the newer coaches we've interviewed on the show this week and also last week. I'd love to talk a little bit about your origins in coaching. What got you started and what brought you to Bradshaw Mountain?
Well, my origin is in the state of Illinois. I coached there since 1988. So I coached track and field at a school called West Chicago High School, coached cross country there as well, and cross country at a number of different other schools near the end of my tenure there. In May of 2020, I retired. Graduation in a way.
It's a long school year, Coach. Very long school year.
Yeah, 2020 was a doozy. But really came to Prescott Valley because my mom lives in Prescott. She's 86, and we felt like she needed some care. So we felt like we should come to this area. And then, I still have track and field in my blood. It's been in there for a long time. So I applied for the position of track coach at Bradshaw and went through the application, and that's pretty much how it happened.
Who are some of your coaching inspirations, Coach? What programs around the state, whether it be at college, high school, or even professional, or even at the Olympic level, what are some inspirations and what are some programs you like to kind of match yours to?
Well, again, being from Illinois, there's a couple notoriously great teams. Coach Joe Newton, he passed away now, but York High School is a great high school in cross country. Some of the neighborhood schools, Wheaton North, Wheaton Warrenville South, have some great. They won some track championships and sent guys on to some of the Olympics. Lake Park, Zach Zemek is a decathlete. He was at Lake Park. So some of those teams. It's just been a few months now, getting to know some of the teams around here. Totally impressed. I'm impressed by the Phoenix Bobcats. Coach Jones down there, he's got a good program. He's helped us out a little bit. We kind of have my assistant coach, John Crawford, has like a north branch of the Phoenix Bobcats. So he does a lot of that. Obviously, Brophy, you mentioned that earlier as when you're in our little conversation about a meet that we just went to. I know they have a great program. We're hoping to have one of their former athletes. He's moving into the area to help us coach. That would be really good. So,
yeah, well, it could be another great coach alongside you and your staff as well. Coach, obviously, like I said, the season's underway and just in general, how do you feel the year's going and who's really been competing well for you?
Again, the season's it's different. In Illinois, we coach our kids. It's awesome. Here, there's a lot more at an administrative level.
Okay.
Arranging for the meets, paying for the meets, more almost like a club team. So that's been a little bit difficult. But the highlight of the season has been working with the athletes, plus the staff that I have. John Crawford was an assistant coach for 7 years. Went to Bradshaw. He's been phenomenal. He coaches most of the events. I coach the distance kids. He's been great. And another guy, Don Kirk, is our throw coach. Those are our full-time coaches. So they've been great. We'll start with the girls first because there was a couple returning state qualifiers, and they've been continuing doing a nice job. First one is a sophomore, Giselle Serrano. She's a long jumper. She qualified in long jump and the 300 hurdles. Probably going to qualify in the 100 hurdles as well. She is coming off a basketball season, had a little bit of time then. She's doing really well. Another returning state qualifier is Abby Platt. She's a senior. She was, I think, fourth in the high jump last year. Her sister Hannah has also been doing really well in meets. A senior, Alexis Lee, it's her first year doing track, but she, a soccer player. She's been doing really well. She was one of the girls that competed at the heptathlon. I think she finished 6th out of that meet. Giselle went to that meet. She finished 5th. So she's been doing really well. That's it for the girls. The highlight for the guys, a couple of guys that stand out. Joe Craig, he's a senior, 400-meter runner, captain of the team, great leader. He was one of the first guys I met, when I had an off-season meeting to see who was interested, and he's just been a phenomenal leader, 4x4, leader, just been great. The other guy's been doing really well is Anthony Calderon. He's a junior, and he's just barely off the times in the 100 and the 200, but he's been doing really well. Malachi Stevenson, he's a junior, basketball player. High jump, he's doing really well. Long jump, he's close in the 19s, probably need to be 20 to make it to state, and good in the 4x1, which Anthony's in as well. those are probably the key guys.
Coach, I know it's kind of hard to pinpoint one specific area with track and field as there's multiple events, but I'm just curious, is there a particular area that you'd like to see this team improve in, or maybe an event that you'd like to see this team improve in? Just at this point of the season, Coach, where are you making adjustments?
And I feel like we're pretty small in number. We have about 28 boys and 28 girls. So, I mean, I think we need some depth. And that's going to take time. I was hired really late in the school year, probably December, I want to say December. So just getting the schedule together and, being in the building. I'm at a grade school nearby, so I'm not in the building. I'm hoping to, maybe get there in the future. So that way I can talk to kids and get kids out. So really missing some depth. We did have some input by the football coach. So we have some of the skilled players. Really, we're really weak, I would say, in the throws. We have probably 4 or 5 boys are throwing, and I don't think any of them are really football players. So you'd like to have the linemen out there putting in their time and getting stronger, good footwork, and being competitive. So that's an area we're really working on. In the past, we've been very weak in the distance, but proud to say that the guys and girls have been working really hard, and some of the better guys are sophomores anyway. And so we're going to be making noise in the future. But I mean, that's a thing that, it's like a support for a building. You need to put in layers, and like a pyramid, you need to put in the levels. And as they get to be older, they'll get stronger. And as they put training seasons together, they're going to get stronger. Those are probably the weak areas of weakness. We're pretty good in the sprints. Ideally, I had set up a lot of coaches like from last year to come back and help. And we do have some part-time coaches. Jeremy Platt helps out with the pole vault, and Elke Sunderland helps out with the long jump. They just come a couple times a week. Ideally, we'd have each event covered.
Right.
So that's something, and I'm going to try to work on to get some quality coaches.
Again, we were speaking with Bradshaw Mountain High School track and field coach Paul Mcleland. Again, the Bears season is currently underway. We're actually getting really close to the start of state competition. We'll talk with Coach Mcleland about some of the players he might have that are competing in state. But Coach, you talk about, obviously recruiting more kids is important. You want that depth. You want to give kids experience and get them interested in track and field. You talk about coming in a little later in December. So more speaking towards, this summer and going into this off season, is there anything from your time in Illinois that you're able to recruit kids out to the program, or any kind of cross recruiting for other programs? You talk about the football coach over at Bradshaw. I'm assuming it's Coach Bob Young who helped you out with kind of picking out a couple of the players. But I'm just curious, is there anything from your previous time in Illinois, or anything that you've learned now that you want to implement so that you can start recruiting those kids?
Yeah, if anything, I would say it's not what I've learned from Illinois. In Illinois, they had a standard. There's only a certain amount of time you can meet during the summer and during the school year. Coach Crawford's been big, as he in the past had met with kids all throughout the summer and the school year for the kids that weren't in other sports. And again, he also is a coach on the Bobcats track club. And so he's gotten a few athletes to do that in the past. And that little experience, like, for example, another guy that does pretty good is Shawn Hughes. He's a freshman. Mackenzie Dorsey, she's a freshman girl. And you can just tell they're a little bit more seasoned because they did the club. So, I mean, that's important. And just, they didn't know who was going to be the track coach at the end of last year. So really, most of the summer they met a few times, but during the school year, not at all. So I think just having that continuity of someone being out there, and again, that was what I learned here, should help.
Coach, you mentioned the Phoenix Bobcats a few times. This is a question I was going to save for a little later in the interview, but because you keep bringing up club, I do want to ask, we obviously see a lot of sports, softball, basketball, football, kind of, but a lot of sports can be played year round. I'm curious, do you feel like we could see more of those club teams start to pop up here in Northern Arizona with programs like yours, your crosstown rivals in Prescott, teams in the Verde Valley, or even up in the Coconino area? Do you think we could see more kids competing in track and field year round as opposed to just this particular time of the year?
Okay, so it's my first exposure to the clubs. I had just a little one with some distance runners in Illinois.
Okay.
And I'm not the hugest fan of the club and like year round, because I do think having the kids involved in other sports.
Right.
So I guess I'd rather see them doing the volleyball, the basketball, the football, doing other sports. I really wouldn't want to see track year round. There's some kids that if they're not involved in something and that's like their bread and butter, I think there are some athletes, and I've Phoenix has a huge history of like great athletes that could do it, but I don't really think it needs to be year round. I think, in the past in Illinois, I didn't have a summer camp because they were doing other sports. I didn't want to overwhelm them. I'm going to do it this summer, mainly just for the kids that aren't doing a sport, and also to keep the distance kids running, because otherwise they're going to take the whole summer off.
No, I love that response, Coach. Obviously, I kind of assumed it would be, I'd love to see more track in club, but you're right. I mean, competing in more sports is always great. I know you probably do have a few kids who maybe just compete in track and field and that's just their sport. But like you said, I mean, competing in volleyball and basketball, or even in the fall when you're playing football or swim or whatever, I agree 100%. I think the more sports, the better for sure. Just that you've never asked that question before. So I'm going to try to see what other track and field coaches feel. But I love that response, Coach.
That's a great question too.
So moving on here, again, Coach, we talked about your staff. You've got a great group of people around you. Obviously, there are only so many events that you've gotten exposure to that you've been able to hands-on work with. But, outside of the obvious answer, which is, well, I have staff who help in those areas. In your instances, or, in your experience, if you've ever taken on an event that you weren't fully, you don't have full knowledge on, I mean, how do you approach kind of teaching that event to somebody when you yourself are just still kind of figuring it out as well?
Yeah, well, kind of going with the first thing you said, fortunately, I'm blessed to, and over the years, just be surrounded with people that know their events, and just sitting back sometimes and watching them teach their event to kids has been great. And then also seeing seniors and juniors having learned from their coaches, pass it on to young kids. That's always been one of the biggest great things about track and field. Some sports, the seniors look down on the freshmen, but really in track and field and cross country, in my experience, and what I try to pass on is passing it on to the next group. But yeah, when I first started coaching, I came from running middle distance, and I was a sprint coach. So what I did was I talked to the girls coach there in Illinois, who was a sprint coach. You look at videos. That's what Coach Crawford does, a lot of looking at videos if he's not sure about an event. You talk to other coaches that are experts in the event. There's, for example, a good high jump coach at Flagstaff. And so we've been asking him for information. He says, hey, your girls could use this, that, the other. And so, you let them know what people are seeing. And that's a great thing about track and field is everybody wants everybody on all the teams do their best, and you hope your person comes out better. But I mean, it's really more collaborative than it is in a lot of other sports. So Coach, you just learn.
Do you feel that track and field has that collaborative aspect to it solely because it's more individual based as opposed to like a full team strategy where obviously if maybe you were the basketball coach at Bradshaw and you were talking to the Flagstaff basketball coach, you might be a little bit more kind of cautious with your questions and what you're looking for. So do you feel that individual aspect is kind of allowed for that more collaborative, focusing more on technique as opposed to, like I said, that strategy in other sports?
Yeah, you've had some great questions, and I appreciate your knowledge and just your overall thought of this, because I've never really thought that deep about it, but I think you've hit the nail on the head. I think it is that individual aspect of it. I mean, there are team championships and things like that, but because that's really the only difference I can think of. And you wouldn't be, like you said, and even in football or basketball, I have to have more kindness to them now that you mention that, because that's probably why they're not as collaborative.
Potentially. Again, we're speaking with Bradshaw Mountain High School track and field coach Paul Mcleland. Like I said, the Bears season is underway. They're getting very close to the start of state competitions. Speaking of which, Coach, you have got a invitational coming up this weekend on Saturday. You guys got the Bradshaw Mountain Invitational. What ramifications does that have for state going forward? How many of your players are looking to get into the state competition? And just in general, how are you preparing the team for that invite?
Okay, so there's been 3 or 4 weeks, at least 3 weeks, where we've had 2 meets in a week, and that's tough. So this one, we had a meet last Wednesday, and a couple of girls and one boy were in the heptathlon meet. And so just having one meet, and it's at Saturday, the end of the week, that's helpful. We're kind of resting up for this one. For some athletes, it's the very last meet that they have. So we're trying to get as many athletes in there as possible. And like you said, other kids maybe are close to qualifying, or maybe I think 26 make it in most of the running events. They're maybe like in a 22 or 23 position where we're hoping to get a better time for them so they can, not have so much pressure like in the last chance meet. There are other last chance meets this week, and with the state meet, it kind of usually we roll this meet over, from what I understand from Coach Crawford. So some of the last chance meets are this week. So this typically would have been a week earlier. So it is really late, but it's the last chance for other teams to have their whole team competing, because the last chance meets are only the best. So that's good. We have some Highland has won the meet, I think, the last couple of years. They're here. Snowflake is another team I've heard that a really great team. So we have some really great teams coming to the meet. We're not, sometimes you stack a meet so that you can win the thing. That's definitely not the case here. There's a lot of good teams, but we're hoping just for some good times and a chance for the teams in the valley to come up north to a quality event and some good weather.
The Bradshaw Mountain Bear track and field team will participate in the Bradshaw Mountain Invitational on Saturday, led by this man, Bradshaw Mountain High School track and field coach Paul Mcleland. Coach Mcleland, thank you very much for taking the time.
You're
and
welcome.
I look forward to talking to you when we get maybe closer towards the end of the season.
I look forward to it. Philip, thanks for everything.
We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll be joined by Williams High School softball coach Raul Hatch right here on Off the Bench. Don't go anywhere.
Two things we can count on every year:
A new set of tax rules and great weather here in northern Arizona.
Jackson Hewitt Tax Service, locally owned and operated by Lewis Rice since 1997, is here for you all year long.
Your neighborhood Jackson Hewitt tax office will help you in all of your taxing situations.
Electronic filing is always free with your tax preparation at Jackson Hewitt Tax Service.
Get more in return. Call 1-800-234-1040 for an office near you.
Welcome back to Off the Bench, Northern Arizona Prep Sports, presented by Rice Accounting and Jackson Hewitt Tax Services and Cottonwood Parks and Recreation. I'm joined now by Williams High School softball coach Raul Hatch. Coach Hatch, welcome onto the program.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Very happy to have you, Coach. We got an opportunity to talk a little bit about 1A baseball and softball last week with Baghdad High School, which I know you're very familiar with, as they are also in the 1A with you. But we're getting a chance to kind of get our feet wet a little bit outside of the 4A Grand Canyon region and outside of the 4A in general. We've had 2A coaches on, 3A coaches, so now it only makes sense to bring on some of the 1A coaches of these fantastic programs here in Northern Arizona. Coach, I wanted to talk specifically about your origins coming to Williams. So what got you the job with the Vikings?
I retired. My wife bought a business up here, and we came up here about 5 years ago for a job, and I had to go back down to Phoenix. And so when they found out I was back in town, they asked me if I'd take the position.
What got you started in coaching? Have you coached previously before you came up here to Williams, or is it something kind of new for you?
Yes, no, I raised 4 girls. And so I actually got my start down in San Manuel.
Okay.
Down south, the team we beat for state last year. And then I've done a lot of coaching right there in Cottonwood. And I got to coach with the Camp Verde staff back in 2005 to 2009.
Oh, very nice. Yeah, we're very familiar with the Camp Verde Cowboys here on the show. We've had multiple coaches. Of course, their principal, Mark Showers, their athletic director, Dan Wall, a lot of great coaches. Coach Clint Teague of the softball team, trying to get him back on the show. But right now, the Vikings for this season, currently 9-2 overall, 5-1 in the region, currently sitting at number 2 in the 1A state rankings. Coach, how are you feeling about the season so far this year?
You know, when we when we show up and play our game, the girls are doing really, really well. We only have 3 seniors, so we are still kind of young. Mm-hmm. And we are trying to fill in some positions of very powerful players that graduated last year. And but they're doing a really, really good job of progressing.
Well, Coach, I want to ask about that contrast between last year and this year. Like you say, you guys were able to make a pretty deep run in the playoffs last year. So, I mean, if you were to compare the two squads, I mean, you know, where's sort of the contrast between last year's squad and this year's squad?
This team is actually probably the funnest team I've ever had an opportunity to coach.
Okay.
There's a lot of physical talent, but these kids, their mindset, it's pretty solid. Okay. 9 of these girls have come back from last year, and so they've got to experience a state championship, and so they know what it's all about. So experience that way, they're on top of it, but they're filling in some big shoes. We lost a very solid shortstop, a very solid number 1 pitcher, and a very solid number 2 pitcher last year. So, but our sophomore class, Kai Mortensen is filling in super, super well for her big sister in the circle. And our girls are they're playing well in the spots we've got them in.
Well, we'll get a chance to talk about Kai Mortensen in just a little bit. But Coach, I want to talk about those 3 seniors, Chanel Perkins, Chanessa Larimore, and Kaylee Most. I might be pronouncing some of those names wrong, but you know, Coach, over the past 4 years, you've obviously gotten to see these girls grow. I mean, what have each of their contributions meant to the program this year?
Well, this year has been a little interesting. Chesney Larimore, she is actually my first 4 year. She started with me as a freshman.
Okay.
And then Chanel Perkins, she came on as a sophomore. But their leadership is unsurpassed. This is Kaylee's first year with us. She came up from Peoria. Mm-hmm. And but those 2, Chesney Larimore and Chanel Perkins, they're fantastic leaders. Last week, we lost our 3rd baseman to a blow in the head. So she's on concussion protocol. She got a ball hit to her and went off her forehead. Oh. And so we asked Chanel to slip into second base so we could move our second baseman over to third where she played last year. Mm-hmm. And Chanel really picked it up. And so they're great producers and phenomenal leaders.
Taking a look at the junior class, you got 7 juniors on the roster this year. Obviously, that's going to lead you to a very big senior class next season. Michaela McKay is one. Chesney Cater, you talked about. Candace Orozco. All of them are batting over 500 this season so far. Coach, just in general, how has this junior class made their impact on the season this year? And also, how have they stepped up, to sort of fill out the rest of that leadership roles along with their seniors?
All but 2 of these juniors are returners from last year. Michaela Mackey and McNally. They were JV ball players last year, and so they're kind of sliding in there. But these juniors, they kind of stayed in the background last year and got some experience, but they didn't take that big leadership role on the field. But because we carried 15 last year, because we knew we were going to run into this problem, that we've got 7 of these girls that are just really, really solid ball players. And,
you've also got a great group of sophomores as well, led by Kai Mortensen. She's also killing it at the plate, also batting over 500 as well. Coach, again, going into next season, I know we're not done with this year, but obviously you'll have that returning junior class. But what do these sophomores add to that returning class going into next year and finishing out this season? How's that sophomore class impacted?
These 2 sophomores that we've got running on our team right now are key. We did lose our 3rd baseman. She is a sophomore, so it looks like we may have lost her for the year. But Kai Mortensen moved into that circle. It was a 3-way spot. Riley McNally and then the Larimore girl that just got hurt. And Kai were in a 3-way. They're all pitchers. And and Kai just worked, and she earned the spot in the circle. And usually we run a tandem. We usually run a couple pitchers a year. But I told the girls this year, the way we're building, that we have to have a solid girl in the circle pretty much all the time. And Kai has done a super job.
Yeah, just to give you some statistics, Kai Mortensen on the season, 11 wins, 96 strikeouts, 2.06 ERA so far this season. Coach, obviously Kai came into the program as a freshman, like most of your players do, unless they're transfers, of course. Like you mentioned, you do have a couple of those on your roster. But I'm curious, Coach, obviously Kai was a freshman at one point. How do you approach, a new pitcher to high school softball? Obviously, some players come in with experience, some don't. But when they want to pitch or they have experience pitching, I mean, how do you sort of assess their skills and what do you kind of look for to go, okay, well, she's going to be one of our pitchers in the circle, or maybe, we can use her somewhere else?
Well, I've been in it so long that when Williams asked me to come up here and coach, first thing I did was start approaching some of the fifth graders, sixth graders. And Kai, when we first came up here, like I mentioned earlier in the program, Kai's oldest sister, Taya, was a freshman in high school going to Flagstaff. And when they found out I was up here, they asked me to meet with her, and I taught her how to pitch so she can prepare herself to make the team in Flagstaff. And so since then, Sydney Mortensen, the graduating senior from last year, and then Kai, they would come down and visit me in Phoenix, and we'd go over some pitching lessons and a few things like that. And so their parents have kept in touch with me this whole time. So I kind of knew what we had when we got up here. And right now we have two pitchers in seventh grade that are throwing the ball. They've got fastballs, changeups, locations. They're hitting about 50 miles an hour already. And so we started recruiting them as young. And so we kind of know what they are going to be like when they come into the program. This year, we're carrying a 14U club team for the summer, and we're carrying an 18U club team for the summer. So that really puts us in the right direction.
Can we talk a little bit more, Coach? You talk about sort of looking into that middle school area and trying to find players to come and play in the program, or, just getting them prepared for high school sports in general. And then obviously, like you just said, you guys are carrying the 14 and under team, the 18 and under team. How does this benefit the program going forward, kind of starting that club ball and keeping softball year round?
What's difficult for us as high school coaches is we get them for 3 months. And so it's hard to develop them in that 3 months. We can't break them down and rebuild them in 3 months. And so that breaking down and working on the weaknesses that they have has to be done during the summer.
Gotcha.
And so I always tell the girls, we work in practice. And then when it comes time to play a game, we have to remember we're playing the game.
Yeah.
And so we do very minimal work in a game. I just jot little things down so I know what to do on the next practice. Summer ball does that. We have 3 of these girls that are in 7th grade now. I actually hooked them up with a juggernaut team there in Camp Verde.
Okay.
And they got to play with the Smith family, Henry Smith, Tyra, and Taya. And then a couple of these girls actually played for the Rampage with Danya Weir during the summertime. And so that helped, develop them. And because of my ability to know those coaches down there, because Danya, she's the assistant coach for Teague. She was one of my players when I coached at Camp Verde.
Yeah.
And so anyways, because of that, I've been able to link them in there. And so this year we're going to come back with 2 solid pitchers at the 14U level, decent little catcher, and we're going to build a team around that. So that's what I look at. The summer programs allow us to break the kids down, develop them where we need them. And then, so it's easier for me to run with them when they reach high school.
Now, of course, Williams being one of the smaller schools operating out of the 1A, you're already operating with a limited staff as it is, because I'm sure, Coach, you've got girls who are playing other sports, correct? Girls who are playing basketball or maybe playing just other sports in general. I'm curious as well, will this, the 14 and under team, the 18 and under team, like you said, you only get them for 3 months. And in a lot of cases, that 3 months is more like 1 or 2 because, somebody might be wrapping up basketball season before we get started with softball. So do you also feel that it could alleviate a little bit sort of that not necessarily a sort of like a lull in between the seasons, but do you think that it'll help to kind of keep your softball players sharp while they're still participating in other sports?
It does. And you are right. We have 7 of my starting 9 were basketball players. And then 5 of those were volleyball players. And so I do lose them. Williams Unified, they did a really good job. They created a 6th hour, which is they call a varsity sports.
Okay.
And so 6th hour of their curriculum, they're able to work in the gym or out on the field with me or something, and they can develop. So all my pitchers and catchers work out in 6th hour throughout the year. And then I've got a lot of these other girls that do hitting stuff throughout the year. So that has really helped with that varsity sports program where they get credited for that.
Yeah. And again, it probably just helps a whole lot. Like you said, giving these kids some extra work. They're working throughout the season and you're not having to just go, okay, we've got from these 2 months to start getting you ready to pitch, or you got to play third base. But again, we're speaking with Williams High School softball coach Raul Hatch. Vikings are currently 9-2 overall, 5-1 in the region, sitting at number 2 in the 1A rankings. We're talking to Coach Hatch just a little earlier before a couple games they've got coming up. Specifically, you've got a freedom game against Needles, California on April 19th before taking on St. Michael. Coach, how are you feeling about those two matchups going into those games?
Needles, we had an opportunity to face them early in the year. We go to California once a year. Because our field is under snow a lot during the start of the year, we catch the Needles tournament yearly, and then we catch the Mingus tournament.
Yeah.
And so we got 12 games under our belt before the first 2 weeks of our practice was able to be used on the field. So we went down to Needles. We lost to them, and then we came back and beat them during the first part of our season. And so hopefully we can come back. They're a quality team, and it's hard for us to see how they're doing right now. But we did get them beat early in the season, so hopefully we can come back and do it again. St. Michael's is a very, very tough team. Gabby, their pitcher, she's a strong, hard-throwing lefty. We faced them last year in a doubleheader, and we snuck past them with Kai in the circle, Sydney in the circle. We did a good job against them, and then our second pitcher came in, and we had to come from behind, but we ended up beating them in that doubleheader. So we're hoping the results will be the same this year. But all year long, we've judged. We knew we were going to face these guys, and we knew they were coming back with Gabby, so we knew exactly what we were looking at.
Yeah.
And so we're just hoping to put the bat on the ball when she comes here.
Now, again, Coach, I mean, like I said, you got that freedom game in between a couple of region games. Now, softball a little different than baseball, where you can have your pitcher pitch multiple days back to back. As we all know, softball, the arm movement, a little less strain on the ligaments as opposed to throwing overhand. So don't have to worry too much about pitch counts. But I'm curious, Coach, do these freedom games change your lineup at all? Do they change the starting nine out in the field? Does it give you an opportunity to go, hey, we've got Needles on Tuesday, but we've got a region game on Thursday. So maybe this is a good time to get somebody else some time out in the field. Or are you kind of, I've got my lineup, I've got my pitchers, I'm going with this for whoever we play?
That's pretty much the way we do it.
I kind of figured.
Yeah, our credo for this year is any team, any day. And so we approach that anybody out there can beat us at any given day. And that came to fruition early when we played Joseph City here and we destroyed them 14-2. And then they kind of nonchalantly went down to Joseph City over there and we committed 7 errors in a game and we lose. Mm-hmm. And so they've really woken up from that and to where they understand that any day we could lose a game, no matter who it is. And so our approach has to stay focused throughout the game. And so today we play Ash Fork, and Ash Fork is a brand new team. So they're kind of weak. They've got a great coaching staff. And so they're going to come along, but we've got to play them today. And so we will be throwing our number 2 pitcher against them, but we have to give Kai 2 innings. Yep. And because she hasn't thrown all week. And so, but Kai will be throwing against Needles, and Kai will be throwing the doubleheader against St. Michael's.
Coach, I want to talk a little bit about 1A just in general. What's great about softball is in a lot of instances, and you saw it when you took a trip down to the Faith Moore Memorial Softball Tournament this year to play against Mingus, where you were playing against 4A, 5A, 3A teams, 2A teams. NPA was there, Camp Verde was there, Mingus was there. So I'm curious, Coach, do you feel that there's a misconception about 1A softball, or I mean, do you feel like you guys really can play anybody at any time?
We do feel like we can play anybody at any time. I get a kick out of, John Brown and I are super, super good friends. And he started his Verde Valley Heat program a year after we started our Verde Valley Pride program back in the early 90s. And so John and I know each other really, really well. And we went down there and played Mingus last year. Mm-hmm. And you guys beat us handily 10-0. We only got 1 hit off of you. And at the end, we pull into Hacienda, and I'm eating there at Hacienda, and John comes in and says, Raleigh goes, you've got a good little team. Mm-hmm. And I enjoyed that comment, but the little part of it is like, because we're 1A, they consider us little, but we still carry seniors, juniors, sophomores, just like everybody else does.
Yeah.
And so my goal is to get this program to where it's not considered a little team anymore, a little program that, we can step on the field. We handled MPA, which is a very solid 2A team.
Yes.
We lost a Page, which is a very solid 3A team. And, early in the season, like I said, we don't get much practice because of all of our stuff is done in the gym. And so we kind of get it handed to us early with playing these 4A, 3A tournaments. But we see what's out there, and then we just hit the ground running when it comes time to play.
Hey, you got to tell Coach Brown, hey, that little team won a state title last year. What are you talking about, a little team? Come on.
Yeah.
But again,
and Coach Brown and Coach Teague, they do a good job. We hold a scrimmage every year, and to where we get to play Camp Verde for 3 innings, Mingus for 3 innings, and so we really, really enjoy that because that gives us a 3A, 4A, and opportunity to get out there and work.
A great program over at Williams High School, led by softball coach Raul Hatch. Coach Hatch, best of luck and safe travels in your games down the rest of the stretch of the season. We'll talk after the season. And hopefully we'll be talking about another state title for the Williams Vikings, but we'll have to wait till we get to that point. So Coach Hatch, I thank you very much for taking the time. Best of luck. And it was great getting a chance to talk to you.
Thank you. Appreciate chatting with you.
That's going to do it for this episode of Off the Bench. I'm your host, Philip Catalfamo, wishing you a great rest of your week. We'll talk to you again next time.